Imagine waking up one morning and checking your phone not for messages, not for emails, but to see how much money landed in your account while you slept. No work, no alarm, no boss, just money arriving because you made a decision months or years ago to put your money to work. That is what a dividend income stream feels like. And the real reason most people never build one is not because they do not earn enough. It is not because they are not smart enough. It is because nobody ever showed them exactly how it works, step by step, in plain language, before they gave up and decided it was only for wealthy people. But here's the truth. Dividend investing is not a strategy reserved for the rich. It is a strategy that creates the rich. And today, you are going to understand exactly how to build one that pays you potentially forever. Before anything else, you need to understand what a dividend actually is, because most people have a fuzzy idea, and that fuzziness costs them. When you buy a share of stock in a company, you are buying a tiny piece of that business. And when that business earns a profit, some companies choose to share a portion of that profit directly with shareholders. That payment is called a dividend. It is not a bonus. It is not a gift. It is your cut of the profits because you are a part owner of the business. Companies like Johnson & Johnson, Coca-Cola, and Procter & Gamble have been paying dividends consistently for decades, some for over 50 years without missing a single payment. These companies are called dividend aristocrats, and they are the foundation of what you are about to build. The key thing to understand is this. Dividends are paid on a per share basis. If a company pays $2 per share annually, and you own 500 shares, you receive $1,000 every year, regardless of whether the stock price goes up or down that day. The market could be in chaos. Your dividend still arrives. That is the power hidden inside this strategy. Here is where it gets interesting. Most people who invest focus almost entirely on stock prices. They watch the number go up. They panic when it goes down. They buy high because everyone is excited. They sell low because everyone is scared. And they spend years chasing price movements that even professional fund managers cannot consistently predict. Meanwhile, dividend investors are playing an entirely different game. They are not asking, will this stock price go up next month? They are asking, will this company keep paying and growing its dividend over the next 20 years? That is a completely different question, and it is one that history gives you far more tools to answer. Research from Hartford Funds found that dividends accounted for roughly 40% of the total returns of the S&P 500 over the last century. 40%. That means nearly half of all the wealth generated by the stock market over 100 years came not from rising prices, but from dividends being paid out and reinvested. Most investors spend 100% of their mental energy chasing the 60% and ignore the 40% sitting right in front of them. You are not going to make that mistake. The three-layer framework. Building a dividend income stream that pays you forever is not complicated, but it does require a framework. Think of it in 3 layers. Layer 1, the foundation, high-quality dividend stocks and ETFs. Your foundation should be built on stability. This means either individual stocks with long dividend histories or dividend-focused ETFs like VYM, SCHD, or DVY that hold dozens of dividend-paying companies inside a single fund. If you are just starting out, dividend ETFs are your best friend. They give you instant diversification, meaning if one company cuts its dividend, the other 100 companies in the fund carry you through. You are not dependent on any single business. SCHD, for example, has a history of not just paying dividends, but growing them year over year. That matters more than most people realize, and you will see why in a moment. Layer 2, the engine dividend reinvestment. Here is where the real wealth building happens, and it happens automatically if you set it up correctly. Most brokerage accounts allow you to turn on something called a DRIP, a dividend reinvestment plan. Every time a dividend payment arrives in your account, instead of sitting as cash, it is automatically used to purchase more shares. More shares mean more dividends next quarter. More dividends buy more shares. More shares pay more dividends. This loop is called compounding, and it is the closest thing to a financial perpetual motion machine that exists in the real world. Warren Buffett, whose company Berkshire Hathaway holds massive dividend-paying stocks, has described compound interest as the eighth wonder of the world. He did not say that to be poetic. He said it because he watched it work across decades of investing. Even a modest $10,000 invested in a dividend ETF, yielding 3.5% annually with dividends reinvested, does not stay $10,000. In 20 years, assuming the dividend grows at just 6% per year, that single investment can grow to over $50,000 in portfolio value. And by that point, it is generating over $1,700 per year in dividends alone. From one $10,000 decision made 2 decades earlier. Layer 3, the accelerator consistent monthly contributions. Reinvesting dividends alone builds wealth slowly in the early years. The accelerator is adding fresh money consistently, even small amounts. If you add $300 per month to your dividend portfolio on top of reinvesting dividends, the compounding effect does not add, it multiplies. Your share count grows faster, your dividend income grows faster. The timeline to financial independence shortens dramatically. This is not a strategy that requires a large inheritance or a 6-figure salary. It requires consistency. The investor who puts in $300 a month for 25 years almost always outperforms the investor who puts in $50,000 once and never adds to it again. The yield trap and how to avoid it. Here is the counterintuitive insight that separates successful dividend investors from the ones who get burned. When most people first discover dividend investing, they immediately go hunting for the highest yield they can find. If 3% is good, 8% must be great. If 8% is great, 12% must be incredible. This thinking is dangerous. A very high dividend yield, anything above 6 or 7%, is often a warning sign, not an opportunity. It usually means one of two things. Either the stock price has fallen sharply because the business is struggling, which inflates the yield percentage, or the company is paying out more in dividends than it is sustainably earning, which almost always leads to a dividend cut. A dividend cut is the worst outcome for a dividend investor. Not only do you lose the income you were counting on, the stock price typically drops sharply the moment a cut is announced. The investors who build lasting income streams do not chase high yields. They focus on dividend growth companies that start with a modest 2 or 3% yield, but raise their dividend by 7, 8, or even 10% every single year. Run the math on that. A stock paying a 3% yield on your investment today, growing that dividend at 8% per year, doubles your income stream in roughly 9 years without you adding a single dollar. In 20 years, your yield on the original investment is not 3%. It is closer to 14%. That is called yield on cost, and it is one of the most powerful concepts in long-term wealth building. Building your emergency fund first. Before you put a single dollar into dividend investing, there is one non-negotiable step. You need an emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of living expenses held in a high-yield savings account, not invested, not in the stock market, not in dividend ETFs, cash, liquid, available within 24 hours. Here is why this matters specifically for dividend investors. Markets go down, sometimes sharply. If you do not have an emergency fund and your car breaks down or you lose your job during a market downturn, you will be forced to sell your dividend investments at exactly the wrong moment, locking in losses and destroying the compounding engine you work to build. Your emergency fund is not a financial weakness. It is the insurance policy that protects your entire wealth building strategy. Tax-efficient dividend investing. Once your emergency fund is in place, where you hold your dividend investments matters enormously. If you hold dividend stocks in a standard brokerage account, you will owe taxes on dividends each year, even if you reinvest every penny. Qualified dividends are taxed at 0%, 15%, or 20% depending on your income level, which is already more favorable than ordinary income, but taxes still slow your compounding. The smarter move, especially early on, is to hold your dividend investments inside a Roth IRA. Inside a Roth IRA, your dividends grow completely tax-free. Every reinvested dividend, every compounding dollar, every income stream you eventually withdraw in retirement tax-free, for 2024, you can contribute up to $7,000 per year to a Roth IRA or $8,000 if you are over 50. That is $583 per month of tax-free dividend compounding, and it is one of the most powerful combinations available to any investor. Max your Roth IRA first. Then use a taxable brokerage account for additional investments. What forever actually means. You may have noticed the word forever in the title of this video and wondered if that is just marketing language. It is not. Here's the financial principle that makes dividend income potentially permanent. If you build a large enough dividend portfolio, typically when your annual dividend income equals or exceeds your annual expenses, you reach what is sometimes called dividend independence. At that point, you no longer need to sell any shares to fund your life. You simply live on the dividend payments. Your portfolio stays intact. Because the companies keep generating profit, they keep paying dividends. And if you chose growing dividend payers, those payments increase every year, keeping pace with inflation and then some. Your portfolio does not shrink. It does not expire. It does not run out. As long as the underlying businesses remain healthy and profitable, the income continues. That is what pays you forever means. Not a marketing promise, but a mathematical reality for anyone who builds this correctly. Where to start this week? If you are starting from zero, here is exactly what to do. First, open a Roth IRA if you do not already have one. Fidelity, Vanguard, and Schwab all offer them with no account minimums. Second, set up an automatic monthly contribution, even if it is $100 or $200. Automation removes the decision from the equation. You invest every month without having to think about it. Third, start with a single dividend ETF. SCHD is a strong starting point for most people rather than picking individual stocks. Learn the strategy before you complicate it. Fourth, turn on dividend reinvestment. Every dividend payment automatically becomes more shares. Fifth, do not check the stock price every day. You are not a trader. You are building an income stream. The price today is irrelevant to the dividend payment arriving in your account next quarter. And finally, give it time. The first few years of dividend investing feel slow. The compounding has not kicked in yet. Most people quit during this phase. The ones who stay become the ones who one day check their phone not for messages, not for emails, but to see how much money landed in their account while they slept. You started this video wondering if dividend income was really possible for someone in your position. By now you know it is not a question of possibility. It is a question of patience, consistency, and starting, because the investor who builds a dividend income stream that pays forever does not start when they feel ready. They start today.